everybody, to another episode of SaaS Stories. Today, I'm joined by local Australian James Rose, all the way from Brisbane, founder of Content Snare. Welcome, James. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, Joanna. It's a very, very, very hot day here, but I think that's almost every day in Brisbane at this time of year.
Especially in January, absolutely. I
Yes.
mean, do you even get a winter there or?
Look, it's a week or so.
Amazing. I think most people would be jealous about that. So, yeah, good place to live for sure.
Yeah,
Now,
I truly enjoy our winters. Yeah, it is kind
yes.
of nice being able to go outside and enjoy without having to rug up. I do like that.
Absolutely. Same as me. Now, tell me a little bit about Content Snare. What inspired you to start it? What were the biggest gaps in the market you saw? How did you come up with the idea?
Yeah, so we always, well, for a long time, we've wanted to build software, right? We had a product many, many years ago, completely different industry. But some point we got sucked into the digital agency land. So we were building websites for people and that kind of thing. And we always, like I said, we always knew we wanted to build something else. And thankfully that industry just exposed us to a lot of problems. But funnily enough, at some point I was like, the website briefing process really sucks. And I wanted to fix that.
Yeah.
And that's not actually what we built. For anyone, like no one listening to this probably knows Content Snare. It's not at all what we built. But I was like, this process needs fixing. I was like, we could totally build software to do this. I had like these good ideas. But just on like, good SaaS advice is like, I've read so much, listened to podcasts like this. So you hear people talk about like, don't just go and build something because you think it's cool or whatever, like get validation. So the first thing I did was spoke to 15, 20 agency founders from my local area, like, and just anyone I could find on like LinkedIn, anyone who'd talk to me, got on Zoom calls. And the key was like not putting my idea in their brain. Like a lot of people go, I've got this idea. What do you think? And people will go, oh yeah, that's really cool. And like, they're just lying to you most of the time, right? Like they don't want to make you feel bad that your idea sucks. So instead I spoke, and again, like I'm not the architect of this process. Like I just stole this from other people's advice, but I just asked people to talk about their process of building a website from start to finish. Um, and every single one of them, and sort of dug into each process step in like how painful it was for them or whatever. Every single one of them spoke about getting content from clients, getting information from clients as being the biggest pain, the biggest bottleneck, like really
Yes.
visceral language. Like, this is the biggest pain in the ass for us, or like, this made me want to leave the industry. Like, holy crap, that kind of makes you go, wow, we're onto something. So that was kind of the immediate pivot. We were like, okay, maybe this briefing thing isn't the biggest pain. Getting content is. So that's what we ended up building the initial product to solve. I'm sure we'll get into this, but we're not just serving web designers anymore. In fact, our primary market has shifted considerably. But that's what kind of the inspiration was in other people's problems.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. In another world, we used to build websites, and it was the most painful process for many reasons. And I think it always goes. I mean, I've never seen a website be done in time as well. Kind of like a renovation project. They always go over time and over budget, and it can be quite painful. So, great to hear there's a process and a product for that out there. That's amazing. Now, what were the early days of scaling this product like? What challenges did you face? Yeah, what were the biggest issues that you saw in building SaaS?
uh, um, At first, it was really promising. So my background is actually in sort of digital marketing. Like I said, we'd had the agency and a previous software product. So I had already unlearned my like engineering marketing tendencies, like trying to sell by features and whatever. And I'd already
Yeah.
learned you got to talk things up and sell by benefits and whatever. So I had a history in SEO and marketing. So the initial play was SEO, so writing articles that were good for web designers and stuff that they were searching for, creating a Facebook group, and this is in the heyday of Facebook groups, so getting that community together of like people that wanted to grow their web design business, and a newsletter, and eventually started a podcast. So that was like the content engine, and it actually started out pretty promising. Like we had a lot of good feedback. We would generate like, everything was growing, like everything, that whole engine sort of fed each other. In the podcast, you'd talk about the group, in the group, you'd talk about the podcast, you'd get people to sign up to the newsletter. So that was all like really good for a while, and it looks really promising, but we stalled out pretty hard. And we could never work out, well, at the time we couldn't work out why. All the feedback we got from people was amazing. Like people would talk about, again, that visceral language and like how much we'd impacted their business. But just between churn, our lifetime value and whatever, like we were just struggling to grow. So I don't know, does that answer the question? Like at first it was kind of nice because everything fed each other and had that content engine, which still works today, right? But something was clearly wrong with us, and I think for us that was the audience. I don't know if you want me to get into that yet.
Yeah. I was going to say, how did you figure it out in the end? What was the plateau issue?
I think it was really just came down to the audience. So web designers, a large amount of them are sort of freelancers. A lot of people who, I guess it's really subscription averse, and to put it bluntly, a lot of people in the web design space just aren't making that much money. So another subscription, another cost is really hard to justify, even if it's really beneficial. And sadly, a lot of people go out of business too. So a lot of people would come in as a freelancer, they do it for a year, and then like, I think it was one of the biggest churn reasons. Like we have a free form box when people cancel, just minimum 10 characters. People can write whatever they want in there. And the biggest one was like, not the biggest, but I'm closing my business came up a lot. Or we're downsizing, or we're not doing this service anymore, something like that. So I think that's what the biggest thing was in the end, and just fast forward to now. So we serve the accounting industry as number one. They're about 40% of our business. It's very open. Like we have airlines in there, universities, but the big ones are like accountants, lawyers, mortgage brokers, finance brokers, financial planners, a lot of professional services type things. But if you just think about it, like the average web designer that I used to speak to was probably making 60 to 100K a year. The average accounting firm, even as a sole trader, they're well over 100K. A lot of them, not all of them, but and if they're a firm of 5, they're probably up in that sort of 500K to $1 million range. And it's like they've got a lot more money to spend on a product like ours, which kind of can seem like an accessory. I think that's the other big thing, is there's so many ways to solve what we do, whether it's Google Docs or email or forms, or like there's all of these other ways that they're not as good, but they might be like, I don't know, 40%, 50% of the way there. And for some people, that's enough if they can't justify the subscription fee.
Yeah, absolutely. I really want to get into that actually, because niching is kind of a big part of what I preach to a lot of clients. Is like, especially when you're first starting out, you want to kind of target anyone and everyone just to get some revenue happening. But I actually say that's the wrong thing to do, because if you're attracting the wrong clients, you will go through those pains and challenges, and the scaling won't really happen, and you'll kind of be left yourself asking why, like what's going wrong. So when you had to make that pivot, how did you work out that, the accounting firms were the best way to niche? How did you work out your audience?
Yeah, look, I mean, some of it was accidental. But so it's funny you talk about niching, because we started niche, then we went wide, and then we niched again.
Yeah.
And that was there was intentional parts and accidental parts. So I mentioned before SEO. So a lot of our wide customer base came from people searching for what we did, right? It's like, how do I get information from clients? How do I don't know, like just stuff like that. It's crazy. The SEO for us is really strange, because it's like lots of keywords that get searched like twice a month. It's like people call what we do data collection or information collection or documents, or how do I get files from clients? Like there's 100 ways to say what we do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so through that, we collected a lot of just random people searching for what we did across tons of industries. I think at the time, it would have looked like 80% web design and like 2% all these other like tiny industries, accounting, mortgage, whatever. So then when we decided, we knew we had to pivot away from agencies being our number one, simply because we were getting some feedback from these other ones, other professional services, and it was good. And we knew they had more money to spend. They were generally on higher plans. So that was kind of the inkling that went like, we've got to change, but who do we change to? Because there was literally like, I think the spreadsheet probably had 15 rows in it of like different industries
Yeah.
that we thought we could go into. Education was another one because all our biggest customers were like universities, weirdly, at the time. Um, so we actually just put them all in a spreadsheet and tried to, we came up with random metrics. Like it was like, how easily do we think we can access these people? You know, like if it's a university, that's kind of difficult, right? Like it's very hard to get in front of a lot of universities. So we kind of came up with a score for like how easy it was to get in front of people, how many there were, you know, what was our potential lifetime value from these industries. It was just kind of just like a way of gauging like how much revenue do we think we could do from each of these markets. And I'll be honest, like accounting was not high on, or it was high on the initial list, but I spoke to the next phase was kind of finding people in each of our top 3 or 4. I think it was like mortgage, accounting, maybe law. Law was up there. I can't remember what else, but they pretty much all got written off really quickly because you know, I spoke to accountants and it just so I happened to speak to the wrong accountants, to be honest, that didn't need our platform. But really quickly I was like, yeah, they don't need what we do, you know, and kind of moved on. Law was like, yeah, anyway, I won't go into each why we did and didn't choose them unless you want me to, because it's just a long story, but it was kind of just talking to people in each
Yeah.
industry and kind of evaluating like whether
Trial
or
and
not,
error, really.
yeah, and just
Yeah.
like again, looking for that visceral, like how big of a problem is this for people? Are they willing to pay for it? What are they doing right now to fix this?
Yeah.
Does our solution work for them? Like that was a big thing for mortgage. Is like mortgage is a lot of that industry is based on like PDF filling, and they
Mm.
have these specific PDFs that come from that mortgage aggregator, which we are not in a position to do yet. Like that would have been a big development for us. So we're like, nah. And there was other tools that did that already. So we're like, whatever, we'll just sort of scratch that one for now. Even though a lot of mortgage brokers use us, it's just, yeah,
Yeah.
different. Anyway, um, so that was the next thing. And honestly, that process left us pretty sad because we were like, everything kind of came out as like, nothing's a real obvious winner, you know.
Yeah.
But, and this is the lucky bit, within like a 2-week period, I spoke to an accountant in the US who was like, this thing has like changed my life. It's whatever, you know, it's been so good for us, blah, blah, blah. They gave us like this glowing review. And then a week later, one of the firms that they knew locally had seen their onboarding process and gone, whoa, we need that, signed up. And he said, the quote was, in 4 hours work, I've been able to replace what was a full-time job for somebody.
Yeah.
That's pretty massive, right?
That's a
So,
really good testimonial.
and then literally the next week, someone from a document management system for the accounting industry reached out and was like, I'm interested in inquiring you. The industry needs what you do.
Hmm.
So it was a very lucky sort of stars aligning moment where we're like, holy crap, accounting. Like this is where
Yeah.
we need to go. So I
Hmm.
can't claim any like magical sort of credit for this. I thought we had a pretty good process for trying to identify where we should go, but that didn't actually, the main result was just this like stars aligning moment, the main
Yeah.
outcome, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense. And I think a lot of founders probably feel bad and they think they have to have it all figured out. But really, it's all about testing, market validation, just speaking to as many people as you can. And
That
it does
one.
take a while to
Mm.
figure it out. I mean, we've been a B2B marketing agency for close to just over 15 years now. And
Wow.
definitely have our niche now, but that I can tell you that wasn't always the case. There was definitely a lot of in the early days, just testing out who's our ideal client. And it can take a while, but once you've got it, that's when you kind of see, all right, this is it. This is how we're going to scale. This is our niche. You just
Mm.
get laser focused on everything you need to do after that, which is
100%.
incredible.
You have to
Um,
be pretty patient. That's the thing. It's like you said, you speak to a lot of people, and patience. Like that were the two biggest things because that process probably took us a year, you know, like
yeah,
it's start to finish, if I really think about it, because we weren't sure where to go. So yeah, it's not the kind of thing that's just going to happen. I like the concept of luck surface area, where if
yeah,
you do enough things, like so much in business is based on luck, but you can increase your luck surface area by like doing more of the right things, talking to people, building your
yeah.
network, all this. So you're like building this bigger net to catch the luck when it comes along.
Yeah, yeah. I love that quote. The harder I work, the luckier I get. But yeah, totally. There's definitely some luck involved in it for all of us. Coming back to Content Snare, why do you think it's so hard for businesses to gather information from clients? I mean, I just, as you were kind of telling me about the accountant stories, I just thought back to having to provide all those documents to my accountant. And yes, it is a painful process. So I can see how, you kind of procrastinate on it. But what do you think's the main issues there?
You nailed it. It's a crappy process for everyone, right? Like it's you're asking someone to do work, and that's always
Yeah.
hard if they're a busy, especially a business owner, right? Like they've got other stuff to do. So giving you information is not the priority. And
Mm.
that's why firms, web designers, whatever, everyone, if they need information, they end up having to chase and chase and chase and chase, and the client won't do it. And they'll like reply with something like, can't you just use last year's info? No, no, we
Yeah.
can't, like they're trying to get out of doing the work. Um, but yeah, so that's, I mean, that's why it's hard. It's just, it's
Yeah.
not a fun process. It's not, people forget too. That's another big one. Again, like, not everyone's a diligent sort of inbox zero type person. You ask them for something and that email gets buried and they forget about it.
Yeah. No, it's not the sexiest job in the world as well. Like you don't want to sit there and look for documents and just forward them.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think with cybersecurity issues now as well, everyone's kind of a bit more on their toes about what they
100%.
send to people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity.
Um, Let's talk about marketing strategies a little bit. You mentioned SEO as being one way you captured quite a lot of traffic in the early days, and that probably helped you, get a few different types of personas and kind of made you realize you should focus on accounting firms. What are some, you mentioned the podcast as well, content, which I think content is king, absolutely. But what are some other strategies that you found really effective in scaling?
Well, I can't say anything's really effective. It's one of these like everything works a little bit kind of
Yeah.
scenarios. There's definitely been zero magic bullets, right? Like that content engine I talked about before, that's pretty much wrapped up at this point. Like I closed the Facebook group down because we just changed industries. So it just
Hmm.
didn't make sense anymore. The weekly newsletter I stopped because things just weren't working. I think we will get back to some of this, like the newsletter and whatever. That's sort of the plan for this year. What's worked in accounting so far? Much more of a, I don't know what the word is. It's not traditional, but it's like that, right? Relationship based is probably the word,
Yeah.
phrase. So, very rarely do you just like show up in someone's feed and they're like, wow, I like that. I need that and buy it, right? Even though we are often like such an obvious solution to their problems. Accountants tend to need to see you a lot more. They need to know you're going to be around for a while. There's things like cybersecurity, like we're working
Yeah.
on ISO 27001. We're like 99% of the way
Oh,
there.
that's a nightmare.
It is. It's the worst, and I do not recommend. If you can have a product that doesn't need it and get away with not doing it, highly recommends that.
Yeah. I think most SaaS needs it these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite the process, that one.
Oh, it's rough. But like, so we needed to be in a lot of places and get hurt. They needed to hear about us lots of times, like the classic 7 touch points. I don't know how many touch points it is, but they needed to hear about us.
Yeah.
Like we get things now where people are like, oh yeah, like I saw you at this trade show like a year ago, and then I saw it mentioned in that Facebook group, and then like someone's told me about it on WhatsApp, and blah, 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 and it's like then they sign up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of this. So the summary is like, yes, there's still SEO and people still find us through SEO.
Yeah.
They can, sign up for a newsletter, sign up for a trial, whatever, and then they get on our like product update newsletter where we send them both content and product updates. So there's the newsletter. And some people sign up just for that, even because they know they want to use Content Snare one day, but not yet. So we've
Mm.
had people actually ask, like, how do I just get the product updates, even though they don't have an account? It's like, oh,
Yeah, that's
okay. I never
interesting.
thought that would be a thing. It's not huge, but like that's a subset of people. They're obviously a very hot lead, right? So you do want them on that list. Um, Trade shows, so just in-person events in general. So accountants are really big on tech.
Yeah.
Zero especially has like led this charge in Australia, New Zealand, UK. Like they're obviously coming to the UK a bit, but like I feel like accountants in these countries are way more tech forward and willing to adopt new tech. So that was really good for us. We'd make a lot of like connections and leads there. And obviously you got to be good at following them up or whatever. Other just like, I went to an accountant's Christmas party the other day. Just like I've been to two of them before and not sponsored it. This one we did just for fun because it's like kind of nice to give back, even though I thought it was pretty unlikely we'd get our ROI from it, but it was just kind of nice to sponsor drinks. But a lot of, just meeting people everywhere, like any
Yeah.
kind of accounting event I would go to for a while. And like, you're not necessarily getting leads from that. Like one of the first ones I went to, I made a contact at a product called Ignition, who are just a gem in the accounting space. Almost every accountant knows who Ignition are, and they are fairly complementary to what we do. And that relationship turned into a couple of internal introductions within Ignition. And now like the whole customer success team know about us. And like they often recommend us to their customers because we're like the next step in the process after Ignition. They do like digital sort of like signing and engagement letters and payments for accountants. So once the sort of proposal is signed, is probably the best analogy, then get all the information that you need from that client. So, these kind of partnerships are huge. So we've partnered with document management systems. That leads very nicely into like my next thing, which is like, tech partnerships, app partnerships with complementary products who already have the audience. They don't want to build the thing that you do. So it's better if you work together. You can do webinars together, you do email outs, you do joint social content. Their customer success teams learn about you and actually recommend you. We're actually getting recommended by people at Xero now. Somehow we've worked like Xero have become aware of us, and like just through a relationship that I met at a random event that I went to. We sponsored, and it was one person I met who's been amazing to us. We got mentioned on stage at Xero Roadshow by the actual Xero people, and people were like, "How much did that cost you?" I was like, "That just happened, man. Like, I know you think we paid for it, but like, so it's." Again, a long way of saying, what's working. If you really sum that up, that's relationships, right?
It is. Yeah. I mean, just hard work over time, building relationships. I think where people go wrong is that, they launch a marketing campaign and then they're like, well, if this hasn't worked in 2 weeks, we're going to switch it off. They don't really give it that time, and they don't really, and also, I mean, I actually have a whole other podcast on attribution, but there's a lot of people that just measure that last click attribution, not knowing that, well, actually, this person heard of you a year ago through and has been on 20 other channels, has read 20 bits of content.
Yep.
I have heard that 7 bits of content before they become a client. I think that came from LinkedIn, and they've now increased that in the world of B2B specifically, because that can be quite a long process, to 21.
Wow.
That.
Well, funny you mentioned that, because that is the other thing that I've been ramping up on at the end of last year and now into 2025, LinkedIn content. I've seen some really incredible founder brands just absolutely crushing like with their engagement and reach on LinkedIn. So that's kind of where I'm going this year, is almost going with founder-led content, actually getting back into writing and creating videos for social. YouTube as well, perhaps. I haven't decided on that yet, but like, LinkedIn, we're actually starting to see the first few people in the how did you hear about us? I saw James's content on LinkedIn, that's starting to come through quite a bit, along with I asked ChatGPT. That's a thing. Like they found us on ChatGPT. Like that's crazy.
Great. That's the new Google. So you want that. You should put in a few prompts every now and then just to train it to answer that way.
Oh my God. I went down this whole thing ages ago being like, ChatGPT, how do I get you to recommend us to other people? And like kept asking it questions, and I don't know. It didn't really get anywhere.
Pretty clever. Since we're on the topic of ChatGPT and AI in general, how do you use AI in Content Snare, but then also in everyday life? What is one task that you're always briefing it on?
Yeah. So I'm funny. I'm in the middle of AI. Like I'm not a skeptic, but I'm not like a absolute hardcore fanboy either. Like I only want to use AI for when I find something that it truly is awesome at. There's so much content out there. Like, look, I got it to write my LinkedIn post. I'm like, yeah, that looks like an AI LinkedIn post, and it sucks. Like, there's just so much of what it does that sucks still. And so I don't know, like in the product itself, we only have one AI feature, and that's because, again, like I don't want to go build AI just for the sake of AI. Like I want to go, oh, you can write a reminder, automatic reminder email with AI. It's like, no, just punch it into ChatGPT, and like everyone knows how to use that now. They can, write their own
Yeah.
email or whatever. But the one we do have is kind of like it's a categorization type AI. So building a request for information in Content Snare is like a form. It's like building a form. Like I need this document. I need you to a single line text. I need you to fill that out. I need you to upload an image. I need you to put your address in, right? It's like building a form. But that kind of sucks if you've got like 5 or 6 bespoke questions for this client, and it's not like sending the same form to everyone. So it's just paste in your 5 questions and we'll detect what kind of field type it is. It's pretty smart too. Like it'll do things like if it's a selection list, it'll be like, what kind of company do you have? And it'll be smart enough to be like partnership, sole proprietor, company, trust, whatever. Like it's kind of good like that. It'll actually fill out the options for a radio button and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the only AI feature we have. I'm really reluctant. There's a lot of ideas we have for AI, but I'm really reluctant to use them in like client-facing processes. Because that's our entire reason for existing. We spoke about this before. The process sucks for clients. So we have to make it really nice, really easy, really pretty, really easy to use. So if we started doing things like one idea is like flagging things that they've answered or uploaded as being incorrect or incomplete or whatever. Like a 90% success rate on that's not okay. Because can you imagine like I don't know, let's say a 75-year-old sort of client, and they're using this like portal to give information to an accountant, and it's like, that doesn't look like the right document. That's like AIs, and they're like, but I swear it is, right?
Yeah.
Like if that's wrong, they're going to sit there stressing over this thing. Like, so that's something I'm really reluctant to add. A lot of people have asked for this kind of stuff, and I think it's a good idea, but it's just AI is not there yet. It's not.
Yeah.
If you
You
risk
kind of,
burning client relationships.
yeah, you kind of have to ask the question, is this making their lives easier or harder? So like, what if the answer is harder, then why would I use it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
AI comes into our sort of business like processes a lot more. Like one that I really like is just testimonials extraction, or just like it's the classic like summarize this transcript type thing. Like we obviously use the meeting recorders and all that. It's not that important for us. But the big one is like I do a customer case study call and just go like, give me your best testimonials from this, like paraphrase and remove filler words and whatever, but just like highlight the benefits of our product that this person said, and it'll spit out 5 like 1-2 line testimonials that are just unreal that we can sprinkle through our like marketing and whatever. So that's one I like. We use it a fair bit in like customer research and stuff. So we have a lot of, this is more automations. I have a lot of automations set up that like anytime a lead comes into our system, it'll do sort of lead enrichment and work out who they are and find out what kind of company they are and spit that out in a Slack channel for our, I was going to say sales team, which is currently 1 person, our salesperson, to like, and they've got like a whole bunch of information right there at their fingertips just on the person who just signed up. So that's really cool. Like that's like anything. If they sign up for a lead magnet, if they sign up for a trial, if they use some of the interactive tools we've got on the website, like that immediately comes through to Slack and we can see what kind of company they are. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what most of the AI we use right now is really just ChatGPT interface to like, in like testimonials or summarization or like helping it work with copy, like I find it's pretty good. I would never get it to write copy, but it's like, here's our header of our website. Here's what we're trying to achieve. Can you suggest a couple of changes? Like I find I often ask it to give me like 5 to 10 ideas, because usually like you ask it 1, it's kind of crap. If you give it 10, like 1 of those will be pretty good.
So, for sure.
Yeah, like there's no sort of super hardcore processes where we use it all the time. Except the ones I've outlined. And like email categorization is a good one too. So like getting it to filter email for me, that kind of has it as almost like a personal assistant, because categorization is one thing I think it does a pretty good job of. It's like, what kind of email is this? Is this like some crappy SEO spam? Is this like a notification? So, and you could filter all that kind of stuff to different folders in Gmail based on its results.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree. I think it's really good to use it for things like transcript and, like summarize this meeting for me. And Content can be a hit and miss. Like there's certain keywords that
Agreed.
it tends to use all the time, and the personal pet peeve of mine is the word unlock just keeps coming up everywhere, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, there is a lot of that, like real big tells in it. And that's why I like it for more like ideation, like so like I do use it for my LinkedIn posts occasionally, but it's more about like I just like something's wrong with this introduction and I just can't make it flow
Hmm.
into the main body of the post properly. So I paste it in. I'm like, can you like transition this from intro to body better? And it's like, bam. I'm like, ah, yeah, that's a really, that's great.
Yeah.
And I never use it verbatim, but it's like, gives me that, it unlock, there's the word for you. But it unlocks something in me where I go, oh, okay, that's how I can do that better.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm just actually looking through my like chat history here and what kind of stuff. And like I saw one the other day. This is an interesting one for SaaS people, and this was really good actually. I saw someone post about on this on LinkedIn, pasting in your cohort analysis of churn, like when people are churning. It says like from one month to another, like how many
Ah,
people are dropping off, and just pasting that in and going as an image and going like, what can you tell me about our churn? And it's like,
yeah.
yeah, there's a pattern here and this and that. And I was like, no way, that's
That's really,
insane. Yeah. So I don't know. It's very, very I think it's not good to just have open there all the time to come up with ideas. Like I've been following the
yeah.
whole agents thing a lot. I think I think most people are really like they're making a lot of agents that are just pointless at the moment and blowing them up. They're like they're the most amazing thing ever. Like I just like the little ones, like email categorization I see as like kind of an agent, but some people would go, oh, then I'm going to get it to draft my replies. And like, we just spoke about relationships, man. If you want to, I got an email back that I knew was AI from someone that I know, like, and respect the other day. And I like immediately lost respect for them. Like I knew it was
Oh,
AI, right? So and it hurt a little bit too, right? I'm like, you don't
yeah.
give a
How
shit
dare you
enough
not
to,
take the time?
yeah, like you this absolutely crap AI response. Like, you
Yeah.
know, it's not good at that kind of thing, right? I would
Yeah.
never use it in comms like that. It's good for
Mm.
research, on your customers. I think that's a really good idea. Like summarize, like for an example, and one I plan on building is like when someone signs up, go to their website, get all the text on it, summarize it, go to LinkedIn, get all their like recent posts, give me dot points of what they've posted about recently. You could do this with a few different sources and then build like a little profile for the salesperson to have done all the research, without having to go all these
Yeah.
places and read. Like that is completely doable currently.
Yeah. That's a clever way of using it for sure. Um, Coming back to your team a little bit, who was your first hire and why?
Well, devs. Yeah, so I don't know if you want a better answer than that, but developers, right?
Well,
Like,
you had to, because you're not the developer yourself, so you had this idea and you had to hire the devs to do that, right?
yeah, so I was a developer. This is the first product I've not written a single line of code on. First thing I've
Okay.
not been
Hmm.
involved in. It's been going for more, I don't know, yeah, 7 years or something now. But yeah, I mean, we already had the dev team, I guess, because we built software as part of our web agency. So we had a couple of devs, we had to hire more. We uh, yeah, like it's hard to say, if someone's listening to this and they are a dev, it's probably going to be an assistant or something to like
Hmm.
help them do that. That's my first non-dev hire always, right? Is like an assistant that can just help with stuff that time consuming, that takes you away from your core value, or what the value you bring to the business, right?
Okay, makes sense.
Mm.
I always wonder if it's like, did you go down the development route? Did you go down the marketing and sales route? Like where do you kind of, because they do say in a business, you need to have like the key main people, and those are, the leader, the marketing person, the salesperson, the CFO, or whatever it may be, the finance person. Um,
Yeah, and I
Everyone's
mean,
different.
everyone's like, when you're starting out, you can't afford all of those. If you can, yeah,
No,
you get all of them, right?
yeah,
Like it's like one person, probably start with one person in all those key roles. But
yeah.
yeah, like when you first start out, you're probably going to be doing bookkeeping yourself, and then eventually you get a bookkeeper, right? It's like when these problems become too big or too time consuming, that's when you outsource them. I
Hmm.
think the one exception is an assistant because, I still don't think I fill my assistant up with like her full-time work, even though we've only got one in our team of like 13. Um, but I guess everything's just becoming so much more efficient with software and AI. Like, but like
Yeah.
that she doesn't need, she's not fully flat out all the time. But when I need something done, like it's so good to be able to go, hey, this is the process I want you to do. Like it might take her 2 to 3 days of stuff that like I don't have to do because she's now doing it, right? Like, and anything that is like, see, before that research we would have had done by her. It's like a new lead comes in, go and do this research and then put it in the sales channel. But now that's just AI, right? So I don't know, like it's just nice to have any recurring processes that you need to do all the time to have that assistant there as well. Yeah, so I think that's
Absolutely.
other than that, yeah. Like, I mean, I'm not going to go say I don't think I'd hire marketing as the first person internally because that takes a while to work out what you're even doing, right? Like
Mm.
you almost need a marketing strategist first. Or you need to, you need to talk to customers. You need to get all that information first before you really understand what your marketing is going to be.
Yeah, you need that validation. You need to know what messages are working. There's so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I guess
you're
a
right.
marketing person can help with that, and they should help with that. It just depends on their seniority.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I think it makes sense. I guess, it'd be different for everyone,
yeah,
depending on what their strengths and weaknesses are. I always find that, if I'm going to hire an assistant, that's great, but doing all the little tasks that would be so time consuming and things I don't really want to be doing. But then, if I'm kind of seeing growth in one area and I know my strengths are not in that area, it makes sense to hire someone smarter than me that can really, take that over and lead with it.
yeah. And that is just such a magical thing when you start hiring people that are just so much better at these things than you were. Like, if you're
Yeah.
wearing all the hats at the beginning, like my support team are like, can you not do support? Because I just screw it up every time I go in there now. They're like, stop. Yeah. And there's a lot of those kind of scenarios happening now where I'm like, man, like we've just got the right people on the bus. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's amazing. I think everyone wants to be at that stage, and there's just so many opportunities from there on. Um, James, my last question for you is if you could go back in time and give yourself one bit of advice or do anything differently, what would it be?
I think it's learn copywriting.
Okay.
Even if you're not going to be doing the copywriting. And this comes back to what I said before. Because I had to, I said I had to unlearn engineering marketing because that's my past life was I was an engineer. So like trying to sell with benefits and whatever. And I think you almost need to know how to, it helps you communicate better as well. Like this, it comes into LinkedIn content, like social content, even the way you write emails and messages to people. Um, yeah, I think it's something that almost every business owner needs to have some level on. Like people will fight me on this for sure and go like, like I don't know anything about copy, whatever. But a lot of those people probably have the money to have the people around them doing all that sort of stuff. Um, so if it's just you, you probably need to copyright. If there's only a handful of people on the team, you probably need to know how to write and communicate better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I think, there's so much out there for people to read. So how do you stand out? How do you write copy that really breaks through and gets attention, right? So
Mm.
if you know, then I think it's a really good skill to have.
I think like even like a big thing that comes up in copy is like trying to remove as many words as possible.
Yeah.
And I do that so
Sure.
much now. It's like I write this LinkedIn post or someone else will write something and ask me to edit it. And I'm like, almost always what I do is just delete entire sentences or like
Yeah.
combine and just reduce.
TLDR.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think the way our attention span's headed, you kind of need to get the point across quite quickly and simply. I
Yes.
mean, I still receive emails sometimes from SDRs, and if they're one line, I will read it and I'll be like, do I need this? Do I get back in touch with, I'll take the time. But if it's like a few lines, a few sentences, I just go, no, delete. I
Yep.
can't, my brain
100%.
can't process.
Yeah, and it's hard to get across what like, one line, 2 lines is really hard to get a good message
Yeah,
across. And that, you can spend a long time on those 2 lines just to try and,
yeah,
some of the things we've spent, hours on for literally like, and this is in like UX of the product too, like hours trying to work out one button. Like what what text should be on this button so that it can not be misconstrued what it's for, right? And it's the same as like copy, 1 or 2 lines. You spend so long, your headline on your website,
Yeah, that's
goes
the
through
hardest
so,
part.
yeah.
No, absolutely. I agree with that. James, thank you so much for being on the show today. I've certainly learned a lot. It's great to, to hear some of the challenges and the things that have worked for you and, not necessarily anything like that could be a buzzword or trendy. It's really just trial and error, testing different things, being patient and relying on the process. So it's really such a relief to hear that. So thank you for being on the show.
It's really awesome to be here. Thanks, Joanna.